So, Daniel and Ash, in 1 month, Wind Waker is going to be launching on Switch 2 via NSO. And I'm sure there's a bunch of people out there going, is this the way to play? This is the original GameCube version. Should I be playing this old 20-whatever-year-old game? Or should I be playing the more modern Wii U HD version with all its quality of life stuff? And it's a nuanced conversation. Because I feel like, unlike many other remasters, Wind Waker Wii U, it's better in some ways, but it also misses the point in other ways. So let's just get into this. Which version do you guys prefer? If you were to be held at gunpoint, and I say Wind Waker on GameCube or Wii U, what system would you shout at me?
Wii U.
If I was being held at gunpoint, I would say Wii U is the version to play mechanically. That's probably the better way to experience this game.
So, I don't know, actually. Daniel said something about a week ago that really resonated with me when we're just talking about this. And he said that Wind Waker HD is a really great version to play when you're revisiting the game. But in terms of playing for the first time, there's a bit more to it there. And I agree with that. Because the Wii U version has quality of life improvements. You know, you get the swift sails. You can just quickly get to an island, ignore changing the winds. And I'm starting to wonder, is that quality of life, or is that just bypassing? Because to be honest, I think sailing is part of the experience. Putting the controller down, sailing the ocean, seeing an island come into view, I think that's integral to what Wind Waker is. And like, if you've played it before, yeah, you can bypass that stuff. I think that kind of makes Wind Waker what it is.
Yeah, he did say that, and I do agree with what Daniel said.
You agree with
you. Funny enough, it feels like it's a modded version in some ways. It's like when you go back to a game that you've already experienced, the pure base version already. Sometimes you go back and just have some adjustments to it, and it seems like this is one of those adjustments. A swift sail to just kind of go wherever you want a lot faster. You don't have to. It kind of invalidates the Wind's Requiem because it just kind of pushes you wherever you're pointing to begin with. So it saves you time that way. Of course, the Triforce quest is like optimized as well, so you're not collecting as many rubies. It's a lot of optimizations that kind of just streamlines the experience. And I understand both ways. Like if you want to just have the core experience, you would play the original. You also don't have to use the swift sail if you don't want to. It's just kind of there, and you have to kind of go out of your way to find it as well. I remember the first time I played, the whole playthrough, I got towards the end, I'm just like, where's the swift sail? I didn't realize I could get it like within the first few hours.
Yeah, it's after like the first dungeon that you can get it. So it's pretty early on, but you can ignore it, you're right. And you're right about the Triforce quest too. They didn't exactly change it, they just kind of cut it. It's still in there, but they cut a bunch of the...
They streamlined it.
They streamlined it, right. So the charts are cheaper, and there's less pieces to find. So technically there's less content, but it was also a very jarring thing that came right at the end of the game. So that's not necessarily a bad thing to streamline.
I want to say I agree with the Daniel of a week ago as well. I actually agree with both of you in the sense that sailing is a really integral part of the Wind Waker experience, and I actually have always defended the sailing. Much like you guys, I never really had as much of an issue with it or really much issue with it at all compared to some people. I agree that part of that Wind Waker experience is sailing and seeing those islands come into view over the horizon, and that real sense of discovery and adventure and, you know, just sailing towards the horizon. And it doesn't help, or it helps, of course, too, that the overworld theme when you're sailing on the Great Sea is one of my favorite pieces of music in the entire Zelda series.
Yeah.
So I agree with you both, actually. It's really just more down to the other quality of life, just a little nips and tucks here and there that make me recommend the Wii U version. But I want to make it very clear. If you haven't played the Wind Waker, the right way to play it is yes. If you can only play it via GameCube NSO, play it via GameCube NSO. But like, if you have the option, gun to my head, as you said, John, I'm going to say Wii U, but I'm not going to ever say, don't play the Wind Waker on GameCube. Like, no, you should play this game. It's fantastic.
Yeah. I mean, Wii U does have lots of small benefits too, like you say. One big thing, it's small, but it's big. When using the grapple on GameCube, you kind of have to stop to turn. Whereas on Wii U, you can just keep turning no matter if you're still swinging. So it just makes that nicer to use. There's also like gyro controls, and you can move in first person in the Wii U version.
That's I was gonna say those two things specifically. Being able to move and aim in first person as well as gyro controls, I think those two things are huge, personally. And gyro especially. John, I know you're like the poster child for pro gyro controls, and I agree. I think gyro makes such a big difference in terms of just the moment to moment gameplay when you're aiming.
So there's a lot of Wii U pros here. What do you think is the core reason people stick with the GameCube game? Because there are a lot of GameCube defenders these days for Wind Waker. I think I know, but what do you guys think?
Man, I think a lot of it comes down to, well, part of it is something that sticks with you the entire game, which is the art style.
Yes.
I think the art style remains as something that looks, to this, as I've played both of them over the years, I think the GameCube version somehow remains to be like that definitive art style version that retains the unique cell shaded style from beginning to end. And I know a lot of people who've also played Wind Waker HD will tell you there's a lot of bloom and there's a lot of like lighting effects that kind of look overdone. Like there's some certain locations where if there's like a torch and Link is in front of it at a certain angle, it looks like, it looks like the same cell shaded style, but if you turn around, he looks like a clay model because of the way that the light wraps around him. And it kind of just looks a bit jarring at times. It's nice in HD, but there's a lot of moments where it kind of doesn't retain that consistent, like, oh, this is a lovely art style, the way that the GameCube has somehow retained throughout all the years.
Right. It kind of misses the point too at times. Like Wind Waker's beautiful because it has all those block colors. You go on an island, it's block green for the land, it's block blue for the sky. Wind Waker HD has very like real-time lighting in there. And so a lot of those block colors become gradients, and it does change the art style. In circumstances, this can be really nice. Like when sailing, you get these different gradients for the sea and the sky, and they're naturally shifting as the time of day changes. I think that's stunning. But otherwise, I do think it does miss the point. And there are points when you're just standing on an island where it's really overexposed. And I think in general, the GameCube game, it's just sort of artistically a little bit more cohesive than Wii U was.
I'm going to take the unpopular approach here and say that the visual changes in Wind Waker HD never really bothered me that much, and I still do love the way the original looks. Don't get me wrong, I think Wind Waker original really holds up in 2025, just like the original Okami, for example. But yeah, I agree that the lighting can be a little bit overexposed sometimes. That's definitely a complaint, but overall, though, I think Wind Waker HD looks phenomenal, and I like the brighter colors. Sometimes I like the bit overdone lighting. I know it's not a popular opinion, but with your torch example, that's a very good point, and that is a shame, and that's definitely a downgrade. But
yeah.
I really like the bluer blues, the more vibrant colors, the overdone light. The sky lighting especially can be a little bit overdone, but in a way, I kind of like it. And I get that it misses the point of the original art style, but visually speaking, for my pleasure center in my brain, I enjoy it. I don't know, I get, like you said, it misses the point, but I like some of that overdone lighting. Not in every case, but in some cases. And I really love the way Wind Waker HD looks, just in general. And so for me, I've definitely heard those complaints over the years. I just don't think they really apply to me personally, but I definitely understand why other people feel that way, and I'm certainly not going to sit here and be like, well, they're wrong. And no, it's a taste thing for sure.
Yeah, I mean, if it makes the game feel more tropical too. Like you're on an island, and it feels hot when you've got that blazing sun just coming down on Link.
Yeah.
One thing I've noticed over the years, which I didn't notice in my original playthrough, because maybe I wasn't as sensitive to it then, but the Wii U version's performance isn't that good. So whenever an explosion happens and those particles come up, the frame rate goes in half. And
it does, yeah.
There's points when you're on the sea and you've got that big sea monster, and the only way to defeat him is by shooting him with your cannon over and over and over again. And not only are the explosions killing the frame rate, but also the storm is killing the frame rate. Digital Foundry weren't really that big back then, but they did videos with no commentary. And so I'll play one over right now. And they show that whenever there's a storm, like when you're sailing and there's lightning, the frame rate goes to 20 FPS, 17 FPS. So it runs a lot worse than the GameCube version.
True.
Yeah. That's
Good
a
point.
that's a something we see often where the GameCube versions tends to outperform other versions that come in, even like generations beyond it. Like I know a lot of people enjoy the Wind Waker style HD version. And I enjoy it too. Like there's a lot about it that I still do enjoy. I don't want to say like it's just completely invalidated because I like the version from the GameCube better. But when we saw that reveal on the Switch 2 presentation where they showed the GameCube version having like it's all cleaned up, it's all nice and crisp, I was like, this is kind of getting closer to that in between for both of them that I really wanted. That HD feel that the GameCube itself couldn't produce, but something that the Wind Waker could also achieve. So it's kind of getting there in between for me on both cases.
It's a shame this wasn't more of the widescreen GameCube games, because you put this in widescreen and suddenly I think the gap between them really diminishes, because widescreen's a big part of the HD version.
Yeah,
Well,
they could.
and- yeah.
It's a shame because they could probably do it too. Soul Calibur 2 and F-Zero GX both have widescreen options, and I mean, if it's essentially like a Dolphin emulator in the Switch 2, they could totally just like break those bars out and just have it be something that we can apply to all these GameCube titles. Honestly,
Yeah, there's
mean,
little stuff in that.
The door is not, and of course this wouldn't apply to the original, but the door is wide open for Switch 2 editions of Wind Waker HD and Twilight Princess HD that improve the frame rate, right? Of course it wouldn't apply to the original Wind Waker, but there is an opportunity there for Nintendo to at least improve the performance of the HD version.
That's true too, yeah.
Yeah.
Wind Waker HD and Twilight Princess HD were they were two of the few like native 1080p Wii U games. Wii U was
Right.
mostly 720p. So I think part of the reason they probably didn't bring it to Switch was like, well, we're not really enhancing anything. It's still going to be 1080p. We're just losing the gamepad. Maybe that's the reason they didn't do it over the years. But I guess with Switch 2, you can finally make it 4K, 60 FPS. There's a reason to still do like both HD and the NSO versions.
I mean, obviously, that's not going to erase the issues people have with the overdone lighting in certain situations and such, but I gotta say, just the thought of a 4K 60 FPS Wind Waker HD gets my tingle tuner going, if you know what I mean. It makes me
That's
very
a
excited.
good bouncing off point.
that was-
Tingle tuner.
I was going to bring that up too.
Yeah, go
Right,
on, you go ahead.
right.
Dan.
There's two different aspects. There's both HD versions of Twilight Princess and Wind Waker. They have assets on there, facets that you can't make use of on the Switch. So Wind Waker, Twilight Princess HD has like all the stamps. All the stamps we could use on Miiverse. They'd just be a collectible at this point because we don't have Miiverse. And then for Wind Waker HD, we also have little bits and pieces that we can't have a part of the experience on the Switch 2 if we were to have it, like having the gamepad. The whole gamepad is like another whole entire component to this. When you're sailing on the seas, you can just look down and it's like your actual map, like you're looking at a map while you're sailing from place to place.
Yeah.
Gives you something to do. And then another bit of that also is the Tingle Tuner, which now this in the Wind Waker HD is the Tingle Bottle. Because Miiverse is also not available, we can't make use of it the same way we could before, where we could just make a silly little message and we throw it into the sea, and then someone else can pick up a few bottles while they're playing and just get a little personalized message that way. Unfortunately, we can't have that in in any. Well, as far as we know, we can't have that in the Switch version unless there's like something else implemented somehow, some way. But at the very least, the GameCube version, we might still be able to use the Tingle Tuner. We don't know how. Maybe it's just a player 2 sort of thing. But it's probably
not
available
looking
in some way.
Because like Pokemon Stadium didn't do anything with Game Boy connectivity. We've just missed out on all of it. There's no reason they couldn't. Like I think it's definitely possible. But Drink to the Past says too, like will the NSO version connect a second Switch for the Tingle Tuner? I think it's all moot. You know, Wind Waker HD doesn't officially have the Tingle bottles. Wind Waker NSO probably won't have the Tingle Tuner. It'd be nice if it did, but I think that both of those specific points are probably just not going to work.
How am I gonna meet Knuckle and get all those stupid golden trophies if I
true.
can't use the Tingle Tuner?
Right?
It's true.
I tend to
Funny how
agree
we-
with you though, John. I don't think they're going to include the Tingle Tuner in the NSO edition. It would be great if they did. It's a really cool bonus. It's not strictly necessary at all, but it is a very cool bonus. It'd be great to see them implement it somehow. But yeah, I don't think we're gonna see it.
You know, one thing I am excited for with the Switch version specifically is, with Switch 2, we are 2 generations on from Wii U. Wii U was a very static system. You could not put that in standby mode. Same with GameCube. So officially, this is the first time you can just pick up and play Wind Waker. Like, you can just like be on a bus stop, pull out Wind Waker, bring it back up where you left off, and you're in the middle of the sea. Whereas with other versions of that game, you have to turn it off, lose your progress, or just leave the system on and waste power. I know that's a small thing, but it's going to make this game really flexible. I think that's great for just traversing the sea.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. And also, I don't know the extent to which people will actually use this. We'll have to wait until June and beyond to find out. But there's also the implementation of game chat and being able to play with friends. And for people who haven't played the Wind Waker before, helping each other out. Like, oh, want to go to this island, or look at that, or, give people tips in terms of sailing the Great Sea, because there is a non-linear element. Obviously, there are places you can go where the game will be like, don't go here yet, and the winds will push you back out of that area. But there is a certain non-linear element to the game where potentially you could help people who haven't played, friends who haven't played the game before by giving them pointers.
Also, major thing, go back to Wind Waker on the GameCube, touch that C-stick, and you'll find something that was very common with games of that era, where it is inverted. So, moving the camera right is going to move it left, moving it left and move it right. With NSO, they finally allow remapping, and on 128 KB, which they've done a few bits of coverage, they outright show that you can remap the sticks. So they change the orientation of the horizontal plane. You can do the same on the vertical plane, any button. So you can revert the camera controls to be more like the Wii U versions, which is a lot more natural to modern camera controls. And that's great.
That's great, definitely.
Yeah, all these little improvements are something that we just couldn't have in the original title. Every time we get a original Legend of Zelda game, there's no remapping whatsoever usually. Yeah. So having this available for NSO is just a big deal all in general. And yeah, just as you mentioned, just being able to take it anywhere, just have suspend mode, or it may make suspend points rather here and there. That's something you can do originally. Just a lot of little life improvements that you don't really get anymore with something you couldn't get back with the GameCube era, or even with the Wind Waker HD version. Because that was one of the major things was about the Wii U. Like, I have it on my gamepad, I can't move it like 10 feet away from the Wii U. That's kind of just, it feels like it defeats part of the purpose of its design.
Yeah. I mean, you guys at the start said the Wii U version's the one to go for, and there's definitely a lot of pros there. I think it's one of those remasters where you're okay to go back even if you prefer one version, though, because there's no game-changing feature. There's stuff that makes it a bit nicer, a bit faster, but at its core, the Wii U version of Wind Waker it's still very much Wind Waker. That Triforce Quest might be the one thing that maybe turns people around, but otherwise, they're both really good. And I can't say to anyone, like, just hold off and wait for an HD version, because what's there is as good as it's going to be, really.
Yeah, I mean, that goes back to what I said at the beginning, where I'm like, if you don't have the choice, the right way to play Wind Waker is, just play it. Because it is such a phenomenal game. It's personally my favorite 3D Zelda, and I would encourage anyone to play it. And if you don't have access to a Wii U, haven't played Wind Waker HD, you don't need to wait. Just play the Wind Waker on GameCube NSO. And as we were just saying, you're still going to get certain quality of life features for the original Wind Waker through the Switch 2 and what it is and what it offers and what NSO offers. So you're still, in effect, playing an improved version of the original Wind Waker via the Switch 2's functionality.
Yeah. Legend of Jess just brought up a very interesting point. The problem with changing the stick mapping is it messes with the Wind Waker baton. And they're right. Like that's a legit thing you can do with many GameCube games, but actually maybe not Wind Waker. Maybe that wouldn't work very well.
Unless you're just mentally telling yourself, okay, whenever I'm playing a Wind Waker song, left and right or reverse, but that would be kind of a pain. Yeah.
I guess it's better to do that than it is to deal with the camera the whole time. Though I guess you can adjust to the camera.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a shame that they're not separated. Like just controlling the camera, controlling the Wind Waker can't have separate controls per game. But that's just one of the facets of GameCube games, unfortunately.
I've just been kind of looking over kind of a list of like minor changes that don't go talked about as often, and it's all stuff that it makes the experience of playing Wind Waker just a little bit smoother in the HD version, but nothing game changing. And I think we're basically hit on the main point, which is if you haven't played the Wind Waker, play it however you can, and don't feel like you need to wait for the HD version, even if it sounds like the three of us in general agree that if we had to gun to our head, would pick Wii U, but we're not saying don't hold out and don't play the original on GameCube NSO.
I want to say that most people that are listening to this probably already have the NSO expansion pack. So when you get Switch 2, you're just going to have it. You're already going to have it there with you once you have your Switch 2. There's no reason to go ahead and play it. And it's not a game that I feel like necessarily needs the GameCube controller to play it either. We have the HD version. It's essentially the Pro controller right here. So you're just adapting to the same controls that way on this controller. There's some other GameCube titles that kind of feel a lot more natural with a GameCube controller, but I think this one would work out just fine for you as well.
Yeah, the only real GameCube specific input is holding the right trigger down a little bit for crawling, and that's kind of it though. It's very situational. But yeah, I think generally I prefer how GameCube looks, but that Triforce quest is always a big part about revisiting Wind Waker. And it is just nicer to blaze through it rather than doing the whole thing. But that said, I think it's also kind of a rite of passage. Like that Triforce quest the first time, it is part of Wind Waker, and I think as a side quest, I think it's quite good. As a mandatory pace stopper before the end of the game, it's not good.
Yeah, I try to go back to my original experience playing Wind Waker, and I don't remember the Triforce quest really bothering me at the time, but I know that when I went back to it to play via Wind Waker HD, I definitely appreciated how it was streamlined. So it's kind of a weird thing where it didn't bother me originally, but then going back to it and knowing how much more streamlined it had been, I was like, okay, this isn't wasting my time with as much busy work, and I really appreciate that.
Yeah, I think on your first run, it's not really something that bothers you as much because you're just kind of feeling out the game. You're not really sure what you're expecting. You're just experiencing this for the first time as you're collecting all these maps and collecting the Triforce pieces. Probably just grinding rubies is the biggest pain of all. But on subsequent playthroughs, that's when it gets annoying. Like, oh god, here's like my least favorite part of one of my favorite games is doing the Triforce quest on the GameCube version, because you just gotta grind it out all the way. And you're just like, oh, I gotta go here and there and fish up all these maps and whatnot. But that's part of the reason why the HD version just feels a little bit nicer to me. Like instead of finding the map, you just automatically find the Triforce piece itself, which makes it feel like it goes by a lot faster. But yeah, I mean, Wind Waker is a fantastic title. I love the Wind Waker. I'm so happy there's a lot of people that are going to be able to play it. You might get some vibes from Breath of the Wild if that was a game you played before Wind Waker, because if you can see it out in the distance, eventually you can also reach it and explore that island. So it has some of those first early vibes of like, if it's kind of not an open world per se, but an open ocean. It's just it's just something that I think a lot of people won't enjoy once they experience for the first time.
Yeah, I mean, if you were born in 2007, how old would that make you? You'd be what, 18 now?
18, yeah.
Wind Waker was what, 2003, 2002.
Oh boy.
So there's a lot of people, there's a lot of adults out there who've never really had a chance to play Wind Waker, especially there's not that many.
Yeah, thanks for
people
aging all of us right now.
Yeah.
Seriously.
So yeah, this will have a lot of new people, a lot of eyes on it, and that's exciting. But I think that's probably all we can really say for now. Wind Waker's a great game, no matter how you play it. And if you're going to play on NSO, you're not really missing out from the Wii U version, even though that has its own pros. But thank you, live audience, for joining us. It's always a pleasure to have you in that box down there. And there'll be a lot more Switch 2 stuff to come. But it was nice to take a little break and talk about a GameCube game for like 20 minutes, half an hour.
Yeah.
But yeah, thank you for watching, everybody, and we will catch you next time. Bye.
Bye.
We'll meet again.